agreed upon. Why is proposed not to be concurred with? I'll take the documents that have been read, Chairperson, so I'll just go straight and highlight a few issues. Just to indicate that on the 16th of August 2022, NERSA received a draft Section 34 determination, which is attached from the Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy, requesting NERSA to confirm concurrence with Section 34 determination for procurement of 1,000 megawatt from 1,000 megawatt of power from different technologies. On the 26th of August, NERSA published a consultation paper requesting stakeholders to submit comments. 6 written comments were received by the closing date of the 16th of September. On the 10th of November, NERSA held a public hearing on the Section 34 determination, and 5 stakeholders presented their views, and their views are captured in the draft RFT. At the meeting of the 1st of December, the meeting of the ELS of the 1st of December, there was a recommendation that this matter not be concurred with. There was, however, a lot of issues that were raised by members. These are captured in Table 1, but perhaps I just want to maybe just raise one here, that members commented that the determination is not in line with Section 34 of the Electricity Regulation Act. The committee recommended this determination be tackled, be processed according to the short-term power purchase program, ESCOM's STPP program, and should then subsequent to that should then be included in the multi-year pricing determination application by ESCOM. So it is on that basis that the ELS then recommends to ER not to concur with the ministerial Section 4 determination for the procurement of the 1,000 megawatts of new generation from other technologies, and to approve the RFT. I hand over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Kumede. Members, any questions, comments, or are we ready to approve this submission? Mr. Mkize?
Thanks, Chairperson, and thanks to the presenter, Mr. Kumede. I was just thinking, Chairperson, that maybe it could help to first of all have in the recommendation to have a note to say that the committee needs to note that the matter was found not to be in line with or requiring Section 34 concurrence, and then go on then with the rest after having noted that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mkize. Can we agree that we will have that addition, Mrs. Banda?
Thank you, Chairperson. Chair, just a question of clarity in terms of process then. Given the capacity constraints, does that mean that so ESCOM has to wait or rather has to lodge a new application, MIPD, or is this going to be done through an amendment process? I just want to understand if the recommendation is that this is not a Section 34 determination, but it should be done through an MIPD. Does it mean a new MIPD or an amended existing MIPD? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Spanda. Mr. Kumede?
Chairperson, thank you for those comments. And Mr. Mkize, you are correct. We should actually include that note. It is in the and that note, in terms of the recommendation, I think it would be useful to include a note as we've indicated. And in fact, in the recommendation itself, in the RFD, we do indicate that this matter should have been handled by an STPP. So right at the end of the RFD. So that's what is being recommended. But your point is noted, Mr. Mkize. Secondly, on the issue raised by Mr. Sibanda, I think, Mr. Sibanda, and this issue was raised. The issue is that if we are saying this section 34, if this is not a section 34 and should have been an STPP, does that mean that it needs to wait for a new MYPD? The answer to that is not really, because it could be handled by an RCA. But of course, if opportunity presents itself to actually amend the MYPD, there is no reason why it should not be amended, but it would need to be applied for. And unfortunately, the way it works, that if it's applied for, it then needs to be consulted, then stakeholders will need to be consulted thereon. But if it's handled by an RCA, the RCA itself will then be, the stakeholders will then be engaged and therefore will be able to fulfill the requirements of Section 10 of the Act. So that is the answer, Mr. Sibanda. I'm hoping it's an adequate answer.
Mr. Sibanda, are you?
I'm answered. Yes, I'm answered,
Thank
Chair.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Massetti?
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I just on the issue of process as to how it will be handled. I want to raise just an issue of discomfort in terms of perhaps I'm hoping that it's not going to be part of the decision. Should we receive any other requests, that perhaps we process them through the RCA, since the RCA, the scope of the RCA is really something that is based on what was before the energy regulator in terms of projecting what is going to happen, and then if those projections or assumptions were not realized, or they are also over recovery, then it is only on that basis that the RCA will be, the cost pertaining to the RCA will be considered. But I'm just concerned if it is something completely new that was not part of that scope, and the particulars of the application that gave rise to the RCA, that such new things then will be considered under that process. I just wanted to just raise that, Chairperson, hoping that it would not be sort of part of the decision, or maybe the record on us agreeing that the RCA could be the process. I just wanted to bring that point to the attention of the members. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Massetti. Have you got any additions or comments, Mr. Gomet?
Chairperson, the point is noted, and I think that the challenge and Madam Massetti is correct that the RCA is basically on the basis of the approved MYPD. However, the MYPD has got a number of assumptions there, including the EAFs and what have you. So the reason why you may want to go and procure short-term power from other producers is that we probably are falling short in other areas. Therefore, I would want to say that the point made by Massetti is valid, but we will then need to. That's why even at that point when this matter comes as a regulatory clearing account item, it needs to be tackled, and it might be referenced back to what has been achieved to see whether there are perhaps some assumptions that in terms of the MYPD that were not met, that could be supplemented by power that is purchased from other people that may have excess power. So, but I actually take the point. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Massetti, your hand is still up. Thank you. So, colleagues, we have had the additions and the points that must be added. With those points added, I think the first one is the one Mr. Mkhize wanted us to add as a note, and the second point is the one Ms. Massetti is adding, that I think we need to just indicate that even if it comes to the RCA, it would have to be assessed through the proper way of assessing an RCA, or I think that we can note as in the minutes. With that, colleagues, can we then go back to the decision and show by show of hands if we approve the decision with those additions? I've got Ms. Massetti, Ms. Mpungose, Mr. Kumete, Ms. Sibia, Mr. Spanda, and Mr. Mkhize. Do we still have Ms. Simane in the meeting? Mr. Mabunda, can you confirm if Ms. Simane is in the meeting?
She's still in the meeting, Chair.
Ms. Simane, can you confirm that you are aligned with that? I didn't see your hand.
Yes, Chair.
Thank you.
I think I just have problems with my network, but I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Okay, then the item is approved with those additions. I was told by the secretary that I skipped item number 4, the declaration of interest on the agenda. May I request the members to just sign the attached declaration of interest forms, please? Thank you, Mr. Mabunda, for that correction. Mr. Gumede, may I then come back to you about item number 5.2?
Thank you, Chairperson. On item 5.2, the electricity subcommittee is here requesting the energy regulator, or recommending to the energy regulator, that it concurs with the draft ministerial section 34 determination for the procurement of 14,791 megawatt of new generation capacity from renewables and storage, which is detailed in Appendix 1, and that it also approves the reasons for decisions for the concurrence. Chairperson, just as a short background on this one, is that on the 18th of July, and again I'm taking it as read, on the 18th of July 2022, NERSA received a draft Section 34 determination from the minister requesting NERSA to concur with the concurrence, to confirm the concurrence with Section 34 determination for the procurement of 14,791 megawatts of power, as follows: 3,960 megawatts from PV, as it is indicated in Table 5 of the IRP for the years 2024 to 2030. Bring that forward, and to also approve, concur with determination for procurement, with the procurement of 9,600 megawatts from wind, and also 1,235 megawatts from storage. As indicated, all the above allocations are in accordance with the capacity allocations in Table 5 of the IRP. On the 26th of August, NERSA published a consultation paper, and on the 10th of November, NERSA held a public hearing on the Section 34, and there were no issues raised by stakeholders on this item, and therefore it is recommended that the ELS then recommends to ER to concur with the draft ministerial determination and to approve the reasons for decision. I hand over to you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Gumede. Members, we have this submission where we are concurring. Any comments, questions, or issues to be clarified? None. Mr. Gumede, this submission is very clear. Then may I request members that we go to the recommendations. The recommendations are on page 2 of the submission, that we concur, and that will send the reasons for the decision to the Minister of Minerals and Energy as well. By a show of hands, colleagues, if we are agreeing. Ms. Maseti, Ms. Simane, Mr. Spanda, Ms. Mpungose, Mr. Gumede, Ms. Bia. I don't see Mr. Mkhize. Thank you. Mr. Mkhize, are you still with us? Mr. Mkhize, then. Thank you. I also agree, so the submission is approved. Mr. Gumede, please take us through item 5.3.
Thank you, Chairperson. Item 5.3 is also a matter, Chair, for concurrence in terms of Section 34. But this one, Chairperson, the Electricity Subcommittee recommends to ER that ER should not concur with the draft ministerial.
Mr. Gumede, 1 second. I'm not sure if Mr. Mkhize's hand is on the item we've just decided on. Oh, okay.
Apologies, Chair. I've got a problem with my hand here, but I will try.
Okay. Apologies, Mr. Gumede. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chairperson. So on this one, Chairperson is indicating the electricity subcommittee is recommending to the energy regulator that it should not concur with the draft ministerial section 34 determination, and that it also approves the reasons for decision. Just a little bit of background. I won't go back to the a lot of the background is very similar with the other two determinations, but just to indicate that this particular one was received on the 28th of July, 2022, that with the NESA being requested to confirm concurrence with the minister's determination for the procurement of 3,000 megawatts from gas, and it became important to clarify that this one was not actually this determination was not based on the IRP. It did not refer to any of the items that are published in terms of the table 5 of the IRP of 2019. However, because this had been received, it was consulted on, and a consultation paper was also published on the 26th of August. And again, this matter was discussed at the same public hearing on the 10th of November, where other Section 34s were discussed. At the meeting of the ELS of the 1st of December, members raised a number of concerns and questions on this one, and also basically what the key one that I'm going to refer to. It's almost the same as the first one that we dealt with, that members were concerned that this determination is not in line with Section 34 of the Electricity Regulation Act, that the committee recommended that this determination should have been processed as a deviation. So it should have been ESCOM applying to NESA for a generation license, but having sought and been granted a deviation from the IRP as in terms of Section 10(2)(g) of the Electricity Regulation Act. So concern was raised by members of whether this item should even have been consulted as a Section 34. And this matter still needs to be, in terms of the guidelines, it needs to be dealt with in terms of the guidelines when such requests are received, how they should be processed going forward. In essence, Chairperson, the ELS is therefore recommending to ER not to, I guess, firstly to note that as was done with the previous one, to note that this matter, ELS believed that it should not have been dealt with as a Section 34, but then it then recommends to the ER not to concur, therefore, with the draft ministerial Section 34 determination and to approve the reasons for decisions that are included in this. And again, Chairperson, just to note that in the RFT itself, there is a recommendation in terms of how this matter should have been dealt with and not dealt with as a Section 34. I hand over to you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gumede. Members, I think Mr. Gumede has already indicated we will include the note that Mr. Mkhize had indicated must be part of the decision at the top. Any questions, comments, or additions? I do not see any hands, so may I then request by show of hands if we approve the recommendations? Ms. Maseti, Mr. Gumede, Mr. Spanda, Ms. Mbungose, Ms. Simane, Ms. Sibia, and Mr. Mkhize. Thank you. We've got the decision. Thank you. Mr. Gumede, may I hand over back to you for the item 5.4?
Thank you, Chairperson. This is the start of those difficult ones, Chair. These item 5.4 had been referred back for reconsideration. Had been referred at the ER of the 29th of November had been referred back to ELS for reconsideration. However, Chairperson, even after the referral, Chairperson, it then became very clear that there are still a lot of gaps that still need to be filled, a lot of unanswered questions in respect of this RCA. And therefore, Chair, the ELS, although this matter would have been here for approval, the ELS is bringing this matter here to then request that this matter at this stage not be dealt with, that it then again be the ELS be given time to fill in the gaps that may have appeared when or gaps that were not have not been addressed by the team in respect of the questions that have been posed by members. So, Chairperson, we didn't think it was appropriate to actually just ask for it to be withdrawn from the agenda, but rather to then put it forward to ER to indicate what the issues are. That although we've been given time, but we clearly haven't had sufficient time to be able to close all of the gaps that have emerged. So, Chairperson, we are here. I guess we are bringing this here to then say, although it's on the agenda, we were then asking Chairperson that the ELS is requesting that it be given further time to then look at this matter, and this matter will then be brought back at the earliest possible time. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. Members of the regulator, here, there's a request. Any questions, comments, or points that you would want clarified? None? I'm not sure. Can we then approve, members, by show of hands, you accept the proposal by the ELS? Ms. Maseti, Ms. Mane, Mr. Gumede, Mr. Spanda, Ms. Bia, Mr. Mkhize, Ms. Mbungoso, we have a decision. Thank you. Can we then go to item number 5.6, Mr. 5.5, Mr. Gumede?
Thank you, Chairperson. Just closed my. Sorry, apologies. I just closed board pad. The second one, Chairperson. This one was a request for. Item 5.5 is a request for the implementation of the already approved RCAs. Chairperson, on this particular one, the ELS is recommending that the RCA of 2019-20 be implemented over 3 years, be liquidated over 3 years, starting from the outer year. I keep missing this year, starting from the year 2024-25. So that is the request, Chairperson. The RCA itself had been approved by ER quite a while back, and it's really just the question was in terms of its liquidation. Then we actually had to make a decision on that. So the decision, Chair, just to repeat again, that is asked of the of ER is that this item, that this RCA be liquidated over 3 years, taking into account all of the issues, all of the prevailing issues in South Africa. And so it be liquidated over 3 years, starting from financial year 24-25. Thanks, Chair. I hand over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Gumede. Members, the submission before us is requesting the implementation of that as proposed by Mr. Gumede. Any questions, comments, or enhancements? Mr. Mkhize?
Thanks, Chairperson. I just request the team to revisit also the justification in terms of beefing it up, considering the economic climate both in the country and globally. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mkhize. Mr. Gumede, the proposal is if we could beef up really our reasons for decision and include something about or the notes that come from the workshop that we have just had.
Noted, Chairperson.
Thank
the
you.
RFTA will be so enhanced.
Thank you. By show of hands, colleagues, may we approve this submission? I've got Mr. Mkhize, Ms. Maseti, Ms. Simane, Ms. Svia, Mr. Gumede, Mr. Spanda, Ms. Mbungose. Thank you. We have a decision. Thank you. Mr. Gumede, you still have the floor, so we give over to you to take us to item number 5.6.
Chairperson, this is the more difficult one. Again, Chairperson, this one served before ER of the 29th, and there were clearly numbers that were not tallying, and therefore the request was that this be sent back to ELS for reconsideration. And the ELS has reconsidered this, and unfortunately, same as with the RCA of 2020, 2021, there's still a number of gaps in data that the team still needs to go out and actually source. So on this one, the ELS is again then requesting indulgence that it brings it brings this matter back. But what it's saying is, Chairperson, is that the ELS requested the team to come up with a project plan to indicate how it seeks, how it's going to go about considering the questions, a lot of questions that were asked by members, and also to fill in the gaps in terms of this application. So, Chairperson, we are here as the ELS to request a further indulgence on this, that this matter, that the ELS be given additional time to actually to fill in all of the gaps that are missing, taking into account, Chairperson, all of the deadlines that are associated with this revenue application. There are court orders that are associated therewith, that all of that in terms of the project plan, all of these issues will then be included, Chairperson. I rest, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Gumede. Members, we have this submission and the request from the ELS for additional time to consider certain inputs that have been provided and to also enhance the submission. Any questions, comments, or additions to what has been proposed by the chair of the electricity subcommittee? None, members. Then may I ask you to, by the show of hands, if you are approving the proposal. Ms. Maseti, Mr. Mkhize, Mr. Bia, Ms. Mbungose, Ms. Simane, Mr. Spanda. Thank you. We have a decision. Thank you, Mr. Gumede. We have...
Chair,
yes, Mr. Gumede.
That was the last item on my side. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gumede, for your presentation and that, and I also thank the members for applying themselves to this. We now have reached the end of the open part of the meeting, and may I then thank all of the members. Apologize that we made you wait, but at least we are happy to show that we did not make you wait longer than what was the scheduled time of the meeting. So thank you for your indulgence, and thank you for paying or for having interest in NASA business. We will see you next year or maybe earlier.